All right, so we have 3 control rooms. This is the main control room, and then we have 2 auxiliary control rooms because it's not unusual to do multiple events here at the stadium. And if we have 2 or 3 events going on, we can treat them all independently. Every control room has its own switcher, audio board, communication system. And if you walked in here on a game day, there'd probably be like 30 people in this room, and it would sound like mass chaos. But we run about 20 channels of intercom, so they're all having discrete conversations. So it actually does make sense if you're on the receiving end of it. Now, for a big event like a football game, we use all 3 control rooms together. The main switch comes out of here to the big board and to 3,500 TVs around the stadium. All the replay comes out of control room B. And control room C, we now do a 4K switch out of that room, plus any entertainment that's happening on the plazas is shot from there. And we also do all of our captioning, because we do captioning for the hearing impaired here at the stadium. Any questions so far?
If anybody wanted to, say, get a job, they wanted to be in one of these seats, they get paid for this stuff, what does that look like? How do they do that?
Paid? No, I'm kidding. Well, Dallas has a really good freelance industry going here. The crew members here have worked for years. Same guys who work for us will sometimes work for the networks. So they fill in all the positions like running Chiron or camera or switching audio, and we hire them through a crewing agency. Now we have our own core of 5 people here for week to week, but for game days we have a very large staff. We put out 12 of our own cameras, for instance, so that's 12 camera operators. It takes 2 video engineers to shade the 12 cameras because they're constantly in motion. We have a main audio engineer, and he has 5 A2s because they're putting the mics on the refs, they're handling halftime, cheerleaders, the whole bit. And then graphics operators. The crew just builds, but most of them are freelance people. Some of them have full-time jobs elsewhere, but most of them are full-time freelance. That's what they do for a living.
Do you know the name of the crewing agency?
It's PCI. And even though we're a right-to-work state, there are unions involved, but it's not severe like, up in New York or anything. We have mainly IATSE and IBEW down here, some NABIT, but the local union is IATSE, and they're not too strict, but most of the people who work freelance are members. Okay? So we have the typical positions in this control room. The director sits over here. The technical director, who pushes all the buttons and puts everything on the screen, sits here. Commercial insertion here. Stats over here. Chiron operator, who does all the name supers and that sort of thing, sits here. The associate director sits behind the director here. The producer sits in the corner over there and looks out over the stadium to judge how the show is going and what the crowd reaction is like. All the ribbon board operators are down below. Audio operations behind you, announcer behind you. All the replay is in here, and we take in like 16 different angles at all times, and then there's a replay producer in there who's watching all the replays coming in and decides what order to play them back in. He then relates that to the director, who calls to the TD to put them on the air. In the third room, we have the caption operator, and she's doing live captioning throughout the entire game and the interviews at the end. We have a technical director in there who's doing a 4K switch following the direction of the director in here. It's duplicate, except it's in 4K, and that's experimental here. We're just integrating 4K into the facility, and we're doing some test distribution around the building to see how it's going and make sure that all the TVs are compatible, because we're also in the process of switching out all 3,500 of the TV sets here to 4K televisions.
What's the resolution of this?
That is 1080p.
And is it being switched as well?
It will be in a couple of years. It's a little bit bigger undertaking out there. Speaking of that board, that's 1.2 million pounds worth of board. That board cost about $39 million to build, which is more than the old Texas Stadium cost to build in its entirety. So that's how things have changed over the years. We can take that up to 118 feet, or we can take it down as low as 25 feet. So if we're doing a corporate event here, we can lower it. It becomes part of the stage, and they run their PowerPoints on it, if you can believe that, on a screen like that. And of course, to control a screen like that big, you need a remote control. So we have a big... No, we don't. Not really. But people always ask. But no, we don't. Now, here's what's unusual about having a screen in the middle of a stadium. We have duplicate cameras on both sides of the stadium. So that if you're sitting on the north or the south side and you're looking at the players on the field and you look up at the screen, the players are always going in the correct direction because you're seeing it from the same point of view with the cameras. We figure if the fans don't notice we've done that, we've done our job. But if you were looking up and down and they were doing this, it's spatially disorienting. So from day one, we have had duplicate cameras on both sides. It's the same show, but it's from the correct angle. Same graphics, same, first down line, yellow line, and all that. But we do that, and we've done it since day one here. And a lot of questions come up about, have you ever played video games on the screen? Yes. In fact, the first football game played in the stadium was Madden football on the big screen.
Are the side video side displays the same as the big display?
Yes.
All the time?
Well, no. Each one can be switched independently.
Okay.
And for instance, for a game day, the north and south side are different because they have the north and south angles on them.
Right.
The end zones, it really doesn't matter because it's more like watching TV at home. You don't care which way the play is coming from. And of course, they all get the same thing during replays because you're looking at the screen anyway at that point.
The coaches are too.
Yeah, exactly.
You can go and you can switch what's on this right now from this switchboard, yes?
Well, this switch actually goes to a router. Our router, has everything, all the sources and all the destinations. Our router here is 288 by 288. So 288 inputs and 288 outputs. This is one of the inputs. We route it out to the big board. We could be doing production in here and route something totally separate to the board. Like today, that's the loop we run for the tours. It's coming off of a server, and we've got it routed directly to the board.
Okay, you can't switch it right now or something?
Oh, I could.
No.
I'm kind of tethered here, but let's see. We're on the north side. I'll put something really boring up like a test signal. How about that?
Sure.
There. Just that simple.
So he's just switched to that, and then switch it back.
Let's see. Server 11. But it's all done instantaneously. I mean, we can't really do any delay here because people expect to see the game in real time up there. So really not that much different from what you guys do, just on a bigger scale.
How did you get to the position you're in now?
Well, I've been doing this for, when I said I started in high school, my first broadcast show was in 1971.
I don't think everybody got your name.
My name is Dwin Towell. And I'm director of broadcast engineering here for the Dallas Cowboys. I've been consulting with the Cowboys since 1990, and I went on staff 11 years ago to build the stadium. So, and then we built the Star as well out in Frisco. But I started, basic job doing whatever I was asked to do. I worked my way through college at the television station in Sherman so I could do television when I got out of college. But, in the 4 years I was there, I went from camera operator to assistant production manager there. So I'd work on commercials and newscasts and things like that. Then moved to Dallas, worked in post-production. I made my living as an editor for a while.
Degree in college?
I had a degree in speech and communication, and then Austin College allowed you to write a special degree plan. So I wrote a special degree plan in television production. And then 2 years later, they adopted that as a formal degree there, and you can go to Austin College and take that degree today. So it was pretty new back there. A lot of people didn't really, television was kind of, you're making money off the air. Well, yeah, you can. It's a living. Somebody's got to do it. But I've been doing it ever since, and my career has taken me to a lot of places. 5 Olympics, World Cup. You guys familiar with a purple dinosaur called Barney? I was on the original team for Barney when it was being done in Allen. I know, it's super-de-duper. But yes, Barney too. So, that's the unique thing about this business. It takes you all over the place. And even if you're working from an industrial standpoint, you may go and do a documentary on how potato chips are made, but how often do you see how potato chips are made? You learn the strangest things in this business.
So if let's say I go to college and I get a degree in media arts or like minor in journalism, would that help me out?
Oh, yeah. For instance, what software do you guys use now to do graphics and things?
After Effects.
After Effects, Photoshop, same thing we use. We just integrate those with larger programs. And unlike when I was in school, you have real tools that you're working with that you can apply immediately. A lot of the animation programs that you can get, same thing that we use. So, you know, you're a good step ahead there. And chances are, you know, anything you're learning can be directly applied. And as I said before, the secret is if there's an opportunity, take it. If you're in college and a network comes through and they need someone to go out and hold a parabolic microphone for a game, take it. You may learn a little bit about audio. If they need a utility to carry cable behind the camera operator, take it. At some point, that camera operator may get tired and say, here, you take it. I need to hit the restroom or grab a cup of coffee.
So
you never know.
Is it easy or difficult to get a job in this?
Getting a foothold is the difficult part. And then once you get in, you have to be patient because remember, there are some guys do nothing but camera. And that's what they like to do, and they've done it for years. So you have to be patient, but you can, you know, if you're directed, you can move ahead and do whatever you want to do eventually. The hours are long. It's one of those dirty, thankless jobs that you'll love or hate, but most of the time, if you're going to stay in it, you're going to have to love it somewhat. I do. I've been doing it for, 46 years now, and I could complain, but I've had more fun times than not, so it's a good way to make a living.
You have 46 years of doing this, and I talk to a lot of people in the industry. And I find like half of them are degreed, half of them aren't, but a lot of them talk about who you know, networking. What's your take on all that?
That's exactly right. I mean, not everybody has to have a degree to be in the business. I mean, to me, my college degree was something that personally I wanted to do,
Sure.
But a lot of the people I worked with through the years don't have college degrees, but a lot of it is, they learn by doing. And in this business, it's very hands-on, and so you do learn by doing. And a lot of times you'll take brand new equipment and you'll make it do things that the manufacturers didn't even dream of. And that's kind of the fun of the business. It's you're working in the industry and you're able to do some development as well. And usually a company will appreciate that initiative and you'll move along at your own pace.
A lot of them other too, I don't know how it is with sports, but they'll go and they'll get a job, whether it's gaffing, running a camera, doing something, because somebody knew an opening, and they work with somebody else. Is it the same with your sports broadcasting? Is it the same way?
I think any business is like that. There aren't any formal apprenticeships in the industry, yet there are. My son is the chief engineer over at Fox Sports Southwest, and I never pushed him into the industry, but he kind of grew up. He'd go to the sound stages, he'd come to games and things, and he'd see what I did, and he kind of enjoyed it and decided he wanted to do it completely on his own and worked his own way up through the business.
That made him get to know other people in the industry.
It did, And I might have been short a utility at some point, say, hey, what are you doing? And he said, sure, I'll do it. And I thought he's probably going to hate this, but he ended up enjoying it. And that just happens. I have another son who became a contractor. He had the same opportunity, but he wanted to be a contractor, so you never know. Any other questions? Everybody understand? Well, you guys do games. You know how it goes. Yeah.
Is this all controlled by one person?
This?
Yes.
Yeah, this is a 4 mix effects bank switcher. The TD knows it very well. And I know it looks intimidating, but there are just a lot of inputs, very few outputs, and a lot of the things you set up during a game, like split screens and pictures moving and everything, you can set up memories within the switcher and recall them. And really the good TDs are able to do that, so that if the director asks for something, he can call it up in an instant and do it.
So what if they're sitting here and they want to push a button way up there? Do they have to rush? Well,
usually most of those higher buttons are done in the preset stage, and they're storing the effects specifically so they don't have to reach up there and do something.
That makes sense.
It's all just a matter of having enough real estate to get to what you need to when you're doing the initial programming. Switchers used to be much smaller, and you're probably using smaller switchers because you don't have as many inputs or effects and things, but really the concept is still the same.
That RX-21, is that on site? Is that a green screen?
RX 21, 21A, B, and C, that's the Star in Frisco. So we have 4 ties there, they have 4 ties here. So during a game, I'll send them various camera angles and different things, and they'll be putting together their post-game show to run directly after the game from the Star. And then sometimes they'll send feeds through here. For instance, a lot of the local television stations who cover high school sports get their feeds from here because we get a relay feed from the games done at the Star. The other things you see coming in, various television channels, it's because on game day sometimes there are multiple football games going on, and part of our pregame is we'll run clips from the different football games on the screens. So we don't just sit and watch TV all day, although one of our team members loves soccer, but he's not in here right now.
So whenever y'all hired, do you take high school and college experience into account or just professional experience?
I do. I mean, I look at a lot of things. I look to see what their high school experience was like. I look to see what their college experience was like. I look to see if there's Eagle Scout on the application. Stuff like that, you know. Experience is very important. And it's like when I got my first job, I had 2 years of experience in TV. When I got into it, they had a group at KERA of kids interested in TV. I thought, I know nothing about TV, but it looked interesting, so I went. And, I appreciate what I saw back in the day because people like Jim Lair, who does the Jim Lair Hour now on PBS, he was the newsroom director at KERA back during that period. And I got to sit in with professional directors, watch them, call the shows, and that's how I learned. I started life as a director at 17 years old, which is unrealistic. But later on in life, I eventually moved up to that position as well, and then on into other things like engineering. And, to me, it's an art form. I don't just treat it as a job. It's an art form. It's something I enjoy doing and can be creative with.
It's not as unrealistic as you think right now. With our broadcast, they each get a chance to be directing, and they're doing a lot of the different things right there in high school.
Well, and with internet, you can start your own channel. We never had that ability, but now you can do your own channel. Anything else?
Whenever you get a job in the industry, is it hard to keep that job because it just advances so much? Or did you have to keep up with?
Oh, you mean technically?
Yeah.
Well, when I first started in the business, everything was analog. Mm-hmm. And then it went to digital, and then it went to high definition digital, and now it's ultra high definition digital, and there's already 8K on the horizon. So if you really enjoy it, you're going to naturally want to learn more about it. IP is on the horizon, so instead of it being, all baseband stuff, it'll be all IP generated. Just another thing to learn, and that keeps your mind agile that way.
You said it's long hours. About how many days of the week do you work?
Sometimes 7, sometimes 4 or 5. It just depends on what's going on. Every time there's a football game here, I'm here. If there's a major event, I'm here. For the smaller events, usually not. It just depends really what the workload is. But that's the nature of the business. Let's say you got a contract to work on all the Stars games in town. Well, you're going to be working every day the Stars are in town, but you'll probably be off when they're out of town. Some people get on football packages and they'll make their whole year salary basically working football season, and then they'll take the rest of the year off. It just depends on how good you are, what deals you want to work, and how hard you're willing to work.
And so for playoff games, do you have a different crew than you do on the normal Sunday games, or is it the same people?
It's usually the same people, but expanded. We add, additional people. It's like on Thanksgiving, we'll have extra people because we do the big halftime show that the network covers as well.
So is it hard to take off work and stuff?
Well, there's never something that can't be done, but it will be done. My grandfather used to point at the cemetery and say, that place is full of people who thought they couldn't be replaced. But the truth is, you can take time off. I mean, it's not that all-encompassing. And especially, you shouldn't be afraid to train other people because there's plenty of work to go around. Unless you want to be at the job 24 hours a day, you've got to train other people, and hopefully those people will be willing to take the late shift and at least give you a break there.
What are some differences between between working in like an actual studio and like sports broadcasting?
Well, what we do is very similar to broadcast. Personally, I prefer being in one location. I used to have to travel and do freelance and, work on the trucks and things, and it's fun to a point, but you get tired of traveling. If you work at a television station, a lot of times it's all studio work, which, it's a little more organized most of the time because you have a studio. It has a set purpose. You have a news set or whatever set, and you do it every day. Here, we get different events in, so we have to do different camera arrangements, different crews. We have some people who shoot sports, football and the like, but they don't know anything about rodeo. So we bring in camera operators who know rodeo for dirt events and things like that. So it's a little bit more eclectic working in an environment like this.
You have a crane camera during game days.
The Sky Cam.
Sky Cam.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where's the person who operates that? Where are they at?
We have a very high booth here that we refer to as Area 51 because nobody knows what goes on up there except us. But that's where the Sky Cam controls are.
Okay, so he controls that, and then they'll get one of these feeds, and they'll be able to go and.
Right. Yeah. And usually the networks bring them in, and we take the feed. So if you walked around the facility, there'd be these silver boxes on the wall. They're called JBT boxes. And in the boxes are all the I/O panels with the cameras, audio, fiber, and they all go back to the network dock, and then some of them come up here. So when you plug your equipment in anywhere in the building, it can be cross-patched anywhere else in the building.
And is it a network director who comes in and decides what's going to be on that network? And are they here, or how does that go?
Yeah, the network trucks pull in downstairs at the dock, and I don't know if that's part of your tour or not today. But usually for a Sunday night game,
right,
the trucks will pull in on Thursday. So our Sunday night game begins on Thursday when the trucks pull up. We help them interface around the building, get their communication set up, make sure their outgoing feeds are working, because usually they'll go out by satellite and by fiber. And we work pretty closely back and forth to make sure that we're all integrated, everything's working and well rehearsed before the game starts. So, because you only get one shot at a live television event. Up here where you see those 12 blue spots during a game, those would be 12 feeds from the truck that we never put on live, but we use them as additional replay angles to supplement our own 12 cameras that we put out. So it's really a cooperative agreement at that point.
And are they running that from the truck to put what's on the network?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. They do their feed, we do ours.
And
we do a completely separate show.
Okay.
Because of the nature of our show and the double-sided and all that.
But you both share feeds with each other.
Right. We never put their feeds on live, though, because they control their cameras, they tally their cameras, we tally our cameras.
So they bring in their own cameras and they have those.
Oh, yeah.
You've got your own cameras already.
They may put out 24 cameras for a typical game day. We usually put out 12 to 14 of our own, so we have a lot of camera positions out there.
It's two separate crews running the game.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Audio, video,
The whole thing.
yeah, presentation.
So, like, on halftime, if you're watching TV, sometimes they have, like, a highlight film. Is it the individual networks that make those, or is it y'all?
Well, what happens is the networks do it, but we do our own. And here in the replay room, the EVS room, while they're doing recording and playing back, they're also banking sections, usually to a musical bed, and they're putting the melts together. And then if there is a intermission or a quarter break, they may run the highlights at that point, but it's all happening simultaneously.
So you've got, like, one person messing with the highlights and the other doing the replay, or are they just...
No, they're good. The guys, that's what they do for a living. So they can be bringing the feeds in, and while that play is in progress, they're building their other, because, it's a constant record, and you get 6 channels in, 2 channels out of each machine, except for the last machine, which is a 4K machine. We record everything in 4K, and then the EVS operator can take a 1080 slice out of it. So if it's a controversial play, you can get in really tight on it and maintain the resolution and look at it. Oh, and that's another advantage of doing the two-sided thing that we do. We always have a reverse angle. So if there is a controversial play, we always have a reverse angle on it and can usually see things that maybe the network trucks don't see. Anyone else? You guys all sold? Want to do this for a living? I would see a psychiatrist if I were you.
For those that are wanting to do this for a living, sure, you have like a top tip or two, that you would say make sure, like
A way to get your foothold in the door.
that, or just whatever it might be. You've been doing this a while.
Keep your grades up. It's never too early to start your resume. Start your resume now. Put your school experience down and anything else you pick up. A lot of the churches these days have really nice video control rooms, and they put a lot together production-wise. If you're involved with your church, do that. That goes on your resume too. And as I said before, don't be afraid to try any job that's out there. If it's holding a parabolic mic, take it. If it's being utility, take it. You're not going to lose. You're only going to learn at that point. But make sure you keep your resume updated and be persistent. Don't take no for an answer. Keep putting that resume in. Keep making those applications. You never know. There may be one day when the guy goes, "Gosh, I need so-and-so." Well, here's a resume. You get a call. You never know. It just happens. There's a lot of chance. The world's not so controlled that there's not still an element of chance out there.
Is there anything here besides this that you think we should definitely see?
Well, I don't know where your tour is going to take you, but if you do go by the dock, you might point out where the trucks park. And as you're walking around and you see usually 2 stainless steel boxes on the wall side by side, those are the I/O panels where everything plugs in.
All right, everybody good?
Thank
All right.
you.